Let's go. Game time. The standard is the standard. That's our motto. That's our creed.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Better Baby Daddy Club. I am one of your co-hosts, John Latchman,
And I am your other co-host, Kelly Burgess.
and today we are joined with Miss Olivia Stewart. Miss Stewart, can you tell us why you are joining us here on the Better Baby Daddy Club?
Yes, thank you so much. I'm honored to be here. I'm here really to just offer a perspective as it relates to a child growing up with a family dynamic that involves divorce. I had the opportunity to have my parents together at one point, and then life happened. And since then, they have lived separate lives, and there have naturally been impacts from that. So I'm just looking forward to sharing and speaking about what that looked like for me and as someone who has since become a parent, how that has trickled down and even affected my decision making there.
Yeah.
All right.
And so, Olivia, so we don't bury the lead, we know one another pretty well, right?
Hmm. Yes.
Um, everybody out there, Olivia is my daughter, and just my heart. And so it's going to be interesting. We don't know what's going to come up. We haven't done any really pre-showing, and I
Hmm.
like it that way because I think there's an authenticity that comes when you can just speak from the heart about, whatever subjects come up. But it's a pleasure to have you.
Yeah.
So, okay, why don't you set the table with a little bit of knowledge about your background, kind of work you do,
Hmm.
maybe how you got into that and how it informs how you look at the world.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Dad. So I've had the experience for, I guess, going on almost 10 years. So it's been just about 9 years of working primarily in the nonprofit sector. I've had the chance initially serving more so on crisis intervention at the local level. So this would be domestic violence as well as sexual assault, often assisting those who have experienced trauma. A lot of really significant trauma that has not only impacted them, but if in this case, if they have children, it also impacts their children. So I initially started out just like supporting as a victim advocate and a community educator, more than just. Of course, I love that direct service aspect of going and supporting people in those spaces, but I'm really big on empowering and educating people with knowledge because I do believe that's really the mechanism that mitigates risk going forward and makes people more aware. So I started initially there. I've worked in crisis intervention, like hotline services. So pretty large nonprofits that support those who may be suicidal, those who may be in the military who've experienced sexual abuse, who are not in the military, whether they're a citizen or like a dependent of a military member. I have supported in several capacities on that front. And then most recently, I've been working with a law firm. We support a variety of cases, but the ones that I'm most involved in involve individuals who've experienced sexual abuse as children in juvenile detention facilities. So most of these individuals now are adults. They themselves, when I've had the chance to connect with them, have opened up tremendously about their lives. And there's a lot that's revealed in those conversations about what their upbringing was like, if they had parents at home, if they were raised by the foster care system, if you will. And I use raise very loosely, but in effect, if the system was there to support them in their younger years. And so I've really been in so many different ways able to sit back and support various communities, but all of it centers around a crisis intervention and trauma at the end of the day.
Thank you. And I think it's important to kind of set that because you have a unique perspective on the impacts on families and children when things do
Mm,
go well.
sure.
And when there is a breakup, you know better than most the types of things children can be exposed to when you do not have two caring adults there in the house. Our audience is guys that were like us who either caused a breakup or experienced a breakup and are trying to work their way back in their kid's life to be
Mm,
the best dad, the fullest dad that they can be. So it's called Better Baby Daddy Podcast because we want you to be, you might be in a situation where you are like a baby daddy and it's a derogatory term, but
mm,
we want you to work yourself back where you're the best baby daddy that you can be.
sure.
So when I reached out to you initially, it's because I knew, especially now being a mom, that it's almost like it kind of puts a bow on it
Yeah.
of Okay, wow, I understand the gravity of being a parent. Now I have all these different questions that go back to, some of my earliest memories, so,
Yeah.
the floor's open, kinda take it, where you wanna take it. You have a unique
Yeah.
experience, as a little girl, I remember, we had some
Very interesting,
It's
colorful exchanges.
yeah,
And I think, and I want to finish actually answering your question because I think that's a great segue about what brought me into this field of work. I think at a very young age, I was exposed to a lot, especially having parents being one of the older siblings, so of the first 5 kids that you had, being the second oldest and being the only girl. I think growing up with siblings, it naturally made me one who was empathetic and naturally attuned to the needs of other people. But I think as a young child, witnessing my parents separate and initially being so close, close to my mom physically in terms of like proximity, being raised by her and seeing what her experience was like being a single mother, it made me immediately feel like I don't want to be a burden. I only want to help. So if helping looks like I'll do all my homework on my own, so that's one less child, one out of 5 less kids that she may have to assist with, then I want to be that person. And so that was just at a very small age, probably starting around 6 or 7, I those habits, and behaviors started to really trickle in. But going into adulthood, I think I found myself in this space of really caring and wanting to be around people and be a safe space for them is because always desired that. I think I always desired to have an opportunity to be heard, to be seen. And I think between growing up in a big family and growing up in a family that was very much complicated in terms of dynamics, family dynamics early on, it was hard for that to really be accomplished. Like that was what I would consider a hole that was created, a void created because of the the separation and then ultimately the divorce. So, um, that's the best way I can kind of explain what kind of led me into the field. There's more to that, but, I wanna, of course, open the floor to you all in case there was something that you wanted to touch on.
No, this is it's absolutely your floor to speak on. So you don't ever have to feel as though, oh, I'm talking too much.
Yeah.
Right. It's open mic, right? And it's open
Okay.
mic all night. Um,
Awesome.
but I do want to touch on something, the dynamic between your father. I
Mhm.
call him B. So
Yeah.
what is that like now?
It is my dad and I can honestly say, have a beautiful relationship, and
Mhm.
this is something I mean, dad, my goodness, we're talking what, 10 years now in the making,
Yeah,
11,
yeah.
12 years now that we have really been aggressively and intentionally pursuing each other. And I think it's an interesting probably phrase to use when you're talking about a relationship in this case that's not like your romantic party, but I feel like you have to with any relationship that is valuable to you, you have to be willing to put in the work. And so now my father and I, we have both very busy lives. He's working, I'm a parent, he's still a parent. And so when we can find time to be together, we find that time. If it's just a phone call, if it's just a text, like a lot of times I value when my dad will just text me out of the blue and say, "Hey, Kay, I'm thinking of you." And in that moment, without him even being aware, I'm sure he can assume what's happening in my world, but without him really being aware of like what may be going on in that moment, what child is screaming, what other child is like having a tantrum, that little text is so reassuring and it's healing because even now as a 30-year-old woman, I'm 25 years out from when my dad first left. It still is a healing process to this day. I can even say, like, in full transparency, like, preparing and I tried not to prepare because I didn't want to, like, come into this it feeling performative, but in just kind of getting ready for this moment to sit with him, it always makes me emotional because I love my dad, and as much as where we are is something so incredibly special and unique, it also is still a process of healing that I go through, to communicate what I feel about these really, really tough experiences of growing up and development. So, I mean, now we talk. We just this weekend had a daddy daughter date, the 16th of every month, because in 2016, that was the year we really, like, if you will, drew a line in the sand and moved forward in our relationship. we decided on the 16th of every month, that is the day that we will acknowledge each other as happy 16th to celebrate and remember the 2016th year where we said we're going to move forward and be healthier and be more intentional together in our relationship. So, yeah, I mean, feel free, Dad, to speak on how
Well, I mean,
things.
that was a watershed moment. We wrote about it in this chapter, Girl Dad, right? Or I wrote about it, but it was about that. It was about a meeting that we had. And I was telling Latchman before we came on, I can't remember what precipitated that meeting, and maybe you could speak
Mm,
to that. But
mm.
there was things going on that led us to say, "Hey, we got to sit down and talk." Can you speak to what led up to the meeting?
Yeah, I think there were multiple things that led to us sitting down at the diner and having the most, I would consider to date, one of the hardest but most necessary conversations I've ever had with you. And I'm sure it was really hard for you because I say a conversation, but it really was me just completely bearing every bit of my pain and sorrow to you and you sitting with it. And I think that's incredibly difficult for most people to do is to not react, not fix, but just listen. And you cannot reverse the tears, you cannot reverse time. You have to just sit and accept this is their experience. And this is honestly the pain that I caused them. So I think what happened was is there was a lot of things happening in both of our lives. I was in a relationship at the time. I think you were also dealing with a lot of stuff with grandma and her health. And so I really do believe things kind of worked themselves out for us to just have that time and to like sit and be honest. It may have even been, and I don't remember exactly, Dad, but I know that there was a situation when I was in that relationship, I think, where you wrote a letter to my former partner. And at the time, our relationship was not solid. And this is something I wanted to obviously acknowledge is that simply because you may be the father, you may have provided your half of the DNA. It doesn't grant you access to my life, to the most intimate parts of who I am. And in this case, we didn't have a relationship where there was this um intimacy, where there was this safety. There was still an incredible amount of hurt that was overlooked in my perspective. Um, and so when that letter was written to my ex to effectively get to know this person, to be that dad and kind of come in and say, I need to get to know you because you're dating my daughter, I took offense to that. And I think between that and I'm sure some other things, we were like, let's really sit down and just get it out. Let's talk about it.
And
Hmm.
it's funny looking back. I knew about that. I'd forgotten about the letter, but I knew it. It was. I knew. I remember the tension around this young man. Um,
Hmm.
I honestly forgotten that I'd written that letter. I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
that's a crazy move," right?
Yeah.
But I remember you also saying, "Dad, you do not have, in so many words, you don't have the place in my
Mm,
life to do that." And we've talked about that before, Latchman. Like
yeah.
when you mess up as a father, and you want to come back and be the man, there's this residual that you have to you got to work. It's at your daughter's pace, and
Hmm.
only after you have really understood as fully as she can give it to you the damage you've caused. I don't know how you get to that point, or her allowing you back access to that point if you don't do that work. And it was eye opening to me. I was like, who is this kid telling me what I can't do? And I'm
Yeah.
these red flag things, right, as a dad, but I hadn't earned that. Um, and yeah, that's a heavy memory. Yeah, I remember that now. But
Yeah.
all that stuff was going on. So then we end up at this diner in College Park, mm, and speak to what you were feeling and what you remember from that conversation, because it was a change after that. Yeah.
Mhm. I don't know if this is reflective of how necessary the conversation was or how cathartic and meaningful and healing it was for me to talk about everything I shared in that moment, but in this moment, just, like, thinking through it, there's not a lot that I can recall specifically about what I said, and I think maybe that's my example, if I had one, the purest form of forgiveness And I've never quite even in my marriage and other relationships in life, I am one to remember exactly what the offense was, when it happened, how it was said, the tone, what you wore, the shirt that you had on. Like, I am absolutely one who keeps track, and my husband especially would clock me on that. Like, why do you even remember that? So, but with you, Dad, like, I don't remember any of that. I just remember the relief of finally, I he got it, because I think it was probably so many of the same things I had already been saying for the years leading up to it. You know, at this point in 2016, I was about 19, almost 20. And so when my parents separated, I was 5 years old. And so this is 15 almost years in the making of me saying, 6 year old Liv, I miss my daddy. 7 year old Liv, I miss my daddy. And so by the time I got to that point, I'm sure I just said it any way that I could. And maybe I was so exhausted. I would just remember crying so much. I remember just being so incredibly weepy and exhausted. That kind of crying that, like, it just physically takes it all out of you. Um, and just telling you that I was angry. I was hurt. You weren't there. I missed you, and at the same time I resented you, you know? And how do I reconcile loving someone so deeply and being so angry that you want to, like I was sharing with you over the weekend, you want to completely remove any evidence of that person from your life. In this case, I want to no longer even have the last name Burgess. I don't even want to go to the University of Maryland because that's where you went to school. I don't want any part of, at this time, Kelly Burgess, but still say that he's the person that I love so deeply that I still desire to have relationship with him. Like, it was very conflicting, so I think it just kinda came out very raw and almost like I'm tired feeling, and, you know, maybe you remember more about what I shared. I feel like it was just so much coming to the surface, but I definitely remember getting it all out and you just sitting there, and unlike times in the past, because again, this was not the first time we had broached the subject, or maybe I've shared things or got emotional, but I remember, in contrast to another time when I came to you, this is when you were living at some home, one of the homes in Prince George's County. I think it was like two
There was a
homes in
lot
the
of
same
homes you lived.
neighborhood. Yeah, yeah. Well, it was the one, I think, Oak Ridge, Oak Creek, that was
Okay.
like
Yeah.
two. Yeah. So I remember coming to you, and I think I may have been 14 or 13, and I remember telling you that I just wish my parents were still together. And there was a comment made in response to me saying it just didn't, I understand it may have even been unrealistic, like, my parents at this point had been divorced, but that's what was on the child's heart then, is, "I just want my parents to be together." And I remember your response being, "Well, I wouldn't regret I wouldn't undo what I effectively did, because now your brothers," in this case, you're referring to, like, my half brothers, "your brothers are now here."
Mm.
And it felt very invalidating in that moment, because I don't think I was asking you to undo having additional children and the blessing that that was. I think I just needed to hear, "You know what? I wanna be with you too." And that would have been more reassuring than the initial response. So, kind of comparing and contrasting, when we were in the diner and I let it all out again, there was that feeling and risk of, will this just be another time where it will be effectively dismissed or mismanaged, my emotions, my feelings? But you listened, and I remember you hugged me, and I remember the most important thing is you apologized. And I think that was what I needed years ago, but I needed it in that moment, and I got it in that moment.
Well, hey, you know, I thank God that I shut my mouth long enough to do that. I mean, it is, well, first of all, thank you so much for sharing that, Kate, and thank you for recalling, all of the conflicting emotions and the intensity of them. And it was an intense time. And I remember the conversation that you referred to before. And when you talked about, yo, I just want my parents together. John and I, Lashman and I speak to the dual work that dads have to do internally and then have to understand that's going on inside their child. And I just was not a man who was who was able to do that at that.
Mm,
I didn't even know that was a thing to consider, was being probably super factual. Um, it's a terrible response. And I'm glad, 5 years after that, I had a chance to redo it. I remember you crying that uncontrollable, I can't catch my breath. I remember at one point looking around and thinking, are people gonna think that we're like, because the diner was full. It was like,
yeah. Mm,
but that kinda I can't talk.
yeah.
And something in me said, you just have to sit here. And when you say, man, you can't rewind it, there's nothing that you're gonna say that's gonna make it evaporate.
Yeah.
That's the heaviness of the mistake. I think later when we talked about it, I think, you said something to the effect of, it was the first time you felt heard, and, um, and it was the first time that my heart and my ears were really open to the pain that I had caused you.
Yeah.
Really own that. And so when Latchman and I talked to the men on the platform about having, um what's the term we use about accountability? What's
Extreme.
extreme accountability? That as a man, don't can't really speak to the ladies, but as a man, you have to fully own that thing.
Sure.
And sometimes it is an apology, and sometimes you just sit and you just have to wash in the same feeling that that person you've offended. Uh, don't think we would be where we are without that conversation 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, and the reality is, and you kind of alluded to it, it doesn't clear up the memories of the pain
Yeah.
or the I wish that this other thing was in place.
Yeah.
Um, and that's the reality of it.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, the diner, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then we went on, in the book we talk about it. I didn't mean it book, but it helps kinda give us some bookmarks, you know, about I can't remember the time frame, a little later, we went
Yeah, it was, February of 2020. 'Cause when you're referring to the cruise,
to the
right?
cruise, right.
Yeah, February
So
2000.
right, so 2016, we're in the diner, and it's probably one of our most intense points, and then fast forward to 2020, right before COVID,
Right.
right before
Literally
he
the
probably
last
facing
cruise
0 on
they let us
COVID, right?
out before they shut the world down. We managed to get out of.
Yes. So yeah, and so the cruise, why don't you talk about that? And then it just kind of that 4-year period, the difference between this intensity in the diner, and it's kind of breakthrough, and then the trip we took.
Yeah, well, Dad, you know best. That trip was not for dads and daughters. That was
Right.
at the
I I
time for
I was
live
sloppy
and
second.
bay
I was
things.
sloppy seconds on the cruise.
But it's interesting. Yes, the trip was not intentionally at the outset meant for my dad and I to get together, but some life changes happened on my end, and an opportunity opened up for me to have someone come with me on the trip, and he was the first person I decided to go on the trip with, and so he accepted, and I was so honored and so excited because this was the first vacation ever that my dad and I have ever gone on. And to this day, this is still the first and only one that we have experienced. But one of the most healing and just full circle moments because going from, again, a girl who would refer to her father as a sperm donor who said, I want to no longer even have his last name, to getting to the point where I'm like, I have an opening on the cruise. I want my dad to come and I want to experience this whole thing. It was beautiful. So we spent, I believe, around 7 days, if I
Yeah.
recall that, maybe 10. Okay, so
Yeah.
like 7 days together in the same cabin, just locked in, huddled in. Dad was honestly more energetic than me. And
There's a
I
reason for
just
that,
enjoy.
though.
Yeah, I mean, you were really grooving and enjoying yourself, like
Yeah.
rightfully so. I
And
was
I and
shocked
I
because
and I
I
think
was.
and I think you had COVID. I mean, this was before we knew COVID was COVID,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
before the trip, there was a trip to the emergency room. Like, we didn't even
Yes.
know you were gonna take the trip, right? There was a trip
Yeah,
you
that's
drove
true.
with the other, cruise participant who got ixnayed at the last minute, right?
Listen,
Hey,
things happen, life
hey, you know
happens.
what? Hey, you gotta stay fluid when you
Yeah,
with the
you
person.
gotta be willing to pivot when
But,
the time comes to pivot, you gotta do what you gotta do, but
yeah.
you're right, there was a lot happening before the cruise happened, but ultimately we went,
Mhm.
and we spent that time together, and it was beautiful just to be able to I mean, everything from all the couple activities we did as a dad and daughter date. So, for instance, we were probably looking just so comfortable with each other, people wouldn't have necessarily known that this was a father and a daughter, but we were just having a good time, and there were some people during the photography stage that were like, "Okay, get in closer, like a couple, put your hand on his chest," so we got a kick out of that,
No, when the dude wanted you to turn around and me hold you from behind or something like that,
that's when we know we're like,
it's
"Okay,
not
we
that
just need to
kinda
go ahead
thing.
and let him
But,
know."
it's cats on the cruise rolling with, some sugar daddy situations on the cruise, definitely.
Hey, that's why they go on the cruise.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, we had a lot of moments like that, just really funny, lighthearted moments. We also had moments like when we were up on the top deck,
Yeah.
laying in the hammock,
Mhm.
and it was the most simple moment in that. It was just us laying, no other entertainment, no other people, just laying on a hammock, me laying kind of like underneath your arm and us just swaying. And it was like, I mean, to this day, I have moments like that still, simple exchanges with you, but like to this day, that was just one of the most beautiful, priceless. I'm going to bottle this up and put it in a time capsule, and I want to always be able to return back to it and re experience it with you.
Yeah.
So,
Definitely a core memory. That
yeah, core
definitely a core
memory.
memory, for sure. Um, wow, we go a lot of different places. Yeah, the cruise is a beautiful time, and, I just remember, as you weren't feeling your best there. There would be moments when you were good, but I just remember when we were able to step out, man, you would get glammed up. People would be like people would wanna stop and you take pictures of you, and it was really I was proud as a dad that, man, my girl is just feeling like herself, and I appreciate you being the type of woman who says, "No, Imma go ahead, time is short, let's do this thing." That isn't anything I ever would have done for myself. Um, that, that you initiated that and drug us out.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, we had another incident, like, where we went to I think it was just a day trip down to Atlanta to see Earth, Wind& and Fire. I can't remember the
That's right. Yeah, that was,
it was literally a day trip, like, we flew out early that morning,
yes, yes,
almost missed the flight because we parked way out in the Wichita, park,
yes,
and, it's
yes.
20 minutes to get to BW, terminal. We're like, "20 minutes? Like, we're not gonna make it," and we were hustling, right?
We were
I
hustling.
think we're the last
Yeah.
person on the flight, but we get to Atlanta and, see that great, concert at that great venue, and then I think we sleep like a couple hours and
And then right back
right back.
home. Yeah, it
Yeah.
really yeah.
So your girls will pull you into adventures, man.
Yeah, sounds like it, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I want to walk back just a little bit. And I think our audience would be very interested in your answer here, Olivia. And that is, well, first off, let me preface the question. And that is, it sounded like prior to the diner and probably a little bit after the diner, you had essentially, you had jousting opinions about who your father was in your life. What are some of the things that he's done since that moment that has really pushed your thoughts into like, yeah, that's my dad and not just a sperm donor?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because that is quite the contrast, huh?
Yeah.
Um, so I think the one thing that my dad prioritized most post diner was the thing that probably wasn't emphasized enough before the diner for years. And that was being a man of your word. When you say you're going to do something, you do it and you show up.
Mm,
And I had some time last night to journal just to kind of get my thoughts together. And one of the things that I landed on was the understanding that for me, because of my upbringing, there was this, well, he loves you. You know, your father loves you. And this would often be the response to me saying, he's not here. I miss my dad.
mm,
My dad didn't show up. My dad didn't call. And it's my mom reassuring the child, well, you know, your father loves you. And I accepted that. as truth, because the alternative was just very painful. And as kids, we look for evidence of love. We're not at a young age, we're just not necessarily wired to understand that there can be this love in the absence of action. And so there was a lot of absence and a lack of evidence that made me feel very secure in my place in my dad's life. And so in the years following, there was incredible efforts made on my dad's part to show up and be involved in my life in small ways. And he knows this because he has lots of kids. So I'm currently, I think, the second oldest of 10 now, dad, including all the kids. And so it is a lovely thing having a big family, but it's a real experience where sometimes things can just be missed or lost because there's just so many moving plates. So my father knows that when I am trying to get quality time with him,
Oh,
it does
yeah.
not look like me going out to a game with him with four of the other kids. It doesn't even look like me having one of my other siblings there. He knows that when I want time, it's always one on one
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah.
every time.
Yeah.
That is my version of resetting and filling my battery with my dad. It's always one-on-one time. So there was a lot of intentional decision making on his end to carve out time in his busy life. Because again, he was very busy too. He had a mother who, was definitely in need of everyday daily supports. He was caregiving. He still had very young children, that he was raising. And so for him to like make time out of his day, if it's just to have a coffee or to have tea or for us to go and see a concert together, like we just made a point to be really intentional there. So I think that was the first thing I needed to see. It's just like in effect, like with any relationship, when you break trust, and in this case, trust was broken. The trust that he would be there in the way that I need him to be, I just wasn't confident. My dad again wasn't like a complete absentee father. So let me also make that clear. He showed up when he could, and I appreciated that, but I do think it was kind of overshadowed because there was a lot of um, other areas that I wish he would have been a little bit more present in or available for, and that was tough. So, because of that, I just think since then he's just been full throttle. If I'm thinking of Kay, I text her, and immediately I get that message, and I'm like, it means everything. My dad is thinking of me. We may not get together, but every 3 months now, because we have very busy lives with work, with kids. But it's just the fact that when I call my dad on FaceTime on a random Tuesday, I can get his ear for a few minutes and we can talk and we can catch up and that's it. So my dad is a phenomenal man. And I think honestly, with age for me, with age and experience, and also in becoming a parent, I gained perspective that my dad is human and also figuring it out just like how I am. I think as children in the space, it's hard to really understand that your parents are without all the answers as well. We assume because they are older, they have this ability to just figure everything out because they have to, right? Because they're your parents, you think they got it, but it's like no, they are flawed human beings in the same way that you're a flawed human being and you're trying to figure it out with the information that you have and you drop the ball. And I think it was really humbling for me when I myself dropped the ball in a number of
Mm.
ways. And I remember the judgment and that I had, for instance, to my dad about the criticism I had about certain decisions he made. And when I had to look at my own decision making that I've made as an individual, that I even made as a partner, that I've made as a mother, it humbles me. And it makes me, when I circle back in my own relationships that still require healing, like with my dad, it makes me more sensitive. I'm still learning to understand what healing looks like in this space, although I'm intentional about it. But at the same time, I think what's helped me and my dad's relationship to move forward is there was work I had to do on my end as well. There was healing and acceptance and forgiveness I needed to do, but then there was also, let's just recognize that both of you are humans in this space. And as long as you both are willing to come to the table and make things work, and be intentional about it, the possibilities are endless. So I'm going to end on this note by saying, like, I wouldn't even say, like, my dad still has to do check all these boxes to like remain this stellar person in my mind. I think the expectation around what I need from my dad shifted when I took the time to heal myself. And then also when I took the time to really accept he's a human and he's also trying to figure it out. So, what he can provide, I will appreciate. Of course, there's certain things I understand I'm never going to have. Like my parents, Kelly Bird is not going to go back and marry my mother. I accept that. And I'm not also looking for that. But how he can heal and how we can continue to move our relationship forward is just by being a person of integrity. If he says he's going to do something, he does it. And if he can't, he obviously communicates that he can't. Um, and just the small things. I've never been a person who's valued these big, grand gestures. I've never been someone who could be bought with money, which is why even in my dating life, that's never really amused me. Of course, there are things you appreciate, but like my dad, in his relationship and in our dynamic, what it taught me was I just value the small things. I just want your ear. I just want your time. I just want your hugs. There were times where I would just, for no reason other than I just want to physically be close to my dad, would I go to him and just hug him and want to be physically close in that moment. And so it's the same way now. I'm 30, but trust me, when I see my dad, there's something special and really just comforting about being able to go to him as a parent myself and just feel like the child again and be held. And
Mm.
so I know that was kind of all over the place, but I
No,
yeah.
that was well said. And I think if I could sum it up in a couple little cliff notes, there would
Yeah.
be it'd be consistency, it'd be being a man of his word, and then really understanding who you are
Mhm.
and what you lean into in terms of an emotional. I don't want to say the word attachment there, but it, like what emotionally comforts you.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that you know men need to hear that because there are men traveling down paths that could lead past the diner. You know what I mean? They don't get their diner moment because they're not willing to listen or not willing to sit down and not willing to see the damage that they are occurring. Which leads me into a question for you, B.
Okay.
What was that shift like for you? So
Mm,
there's before the diner, there's these, I don't know how to necessarily describe that, but maybe, and I don't want to paint you in a bad light either, but maybe a lack of consistency in her life. And then the diner, there's this pivot at the diner. And then you're like, oh crap, I got a lot of work I need to do. And I got to be very intentional and purposeful about this work. What was that shift like for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was 10 years ago, so I don't remember if it was, "Oh, okay, moving forward,
Hmm.
I gotta call, K on the 16th." I don't think it was that because like she said, it was a really you were a sophomore, junior in college,
the sophomore, yeah.
sophomore in college.
Mhm.
You were living off campus or
Mhm.
yeah, you're living off campus because you had moved out of grandma's house, and then I was getting ready to move in and, become a full-time caretaker, and so it was so much going on. So I liken it to we kinda lanced the boiled, when you have an affection and you just kinda you had to slice that and, then you can kinda drain it. It was like, "Oh, okay, that conversation lanced the boil." And then there was, the stuff has to drain out and then the boil has to heal and then over time. And I think, she said it. I think Olivia's love language is, um quality time, and it's different. We talked about this. It's different having sons and daughters. Like, when Olivia calls, I know it is gonna be sometimes I'll be on the parkway, like, just getting off of 197, and I know we're gonna talk all the way to the Costco at Route 50, or maybe get to the house, right? I just know that. And so I'm prepared to, like, be present for that amount of time, whereas I might talk to all 6 of my sons or 7 boys in that same amount of time, and they be like, "You good, man? You tickets for the game today?" It's just different. But I had to learn that that is what she needed, and I gotta give it. I
Mm,
better give it. That's me showing her love. Um, so I think over time, I just got more consistent with that. And then as I've gotten older, I've learned that, man, time nothing is automatic. that when that person crosses your mind, just send them a text. Hey, thinking it. But it's especially important to her. Um,
B, can I ask you a question? As men, we generally gravitate towards attempting to fix things,
mm,
right? That's our drive. It's like, let me fix this. Let me see if I can change or alter this. Was there a want or a drive to try to go back and fix the things that when you weren't there? Was there like, I gotta go back and fix this so it's better right here, right now?
yeah, sure. I think some of it came off as, she talked about, the struggle with the boyfriend. So you're seeing things and there's
Mm,
paths that you don't want, your kids to go down or you feel like it looks a certain way. And so you kind of flex as a dad that way. So, but then fixing the situation, what I had to come to, and it's still painful. There's not a day that goes by that I don't feel the cost of that decision back in 2001. And it could be something as simple as I'm having coffee at my island and I should hear my kids around. Maybe when a little younger. I should have coffee and I should hear each of them waking up and it's like, and this is what we're trying to tell the dudes, when you make a poor decision, for whatever reason, out of emotion, lust, whatever, you don't understand all the stuff you're forfeiting. The night, the reading at night. We had a ritual when y'all would come visit the honey milk. Give up 365 of that,
mm.
and you say, "I might get it 4 times a month." But you're not thinking about that, and then you're not thinking about the impact on your kids because they want that at 30.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so you always wanna fix it, but fixing it looks different now, doesn't it, Kay? Fixing it is,
Yeah.
let me invite her stepdad over who was really in the gap for a
Mhm.
9-year period when I was just on the ropes.
Mm.
Many of them, the 5, with your mom, have very close relationships with him. Next thing it is, let me reach out to him on Father's Day so he knows he's valued. And it's easier for the kids to see him. They don't have to make an extra trip 20 miles up the road.
Yeah.
And then give him the option to say, no, I'm going down to see Olivia.
Yeah.
It's That's what the fixing looks like. The fixing is, hey, let me get to the point with her mom where we could all get together at Thanksgiving.
Mhm.
Mm, I mean, everybody,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
it just lowers the stress on the children. So,
Olivia, quick question for you here, and that is, we've had various guests on here that have talked about strained relationships with their fathers. What advice would you give to a woman that's experienced what you've experienced and how you've grown to the place where you're like, I'm open for dad to come in? Like, how did you get to the place where you're like, I'm open for him to come in? Was it work that he did? Was it, I mean, you spoke about this a little bit. Was there a lot of internal work where you really had to fight back things and say, because that process, I'm sure, is terrifying
Yeah.
almost because I'm hurt, but I got to open up. And if I open up, I could be hurt more.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
could you speak to that for some people that maybe are in similar situations as you were?
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. No, of course. And you know this, that it's gonna look different for every person. Even just as a great example, because you had more than one child, dad, like it looks different for all five, the first
yeah,
five of us, right? So for me and my siblings, I think what was different for me is at a very young age, I started communicating. And I've always been one to really communicate in the only way I knew how in that moment about what I was feeling. And yeah, I definitely got to a point where I was ready to just completely walk away, if you will, walk away from having any real meaningful relationship with my dad. But what I continue to return back to and wrestle with is I knew I wanted relationship with him. And so it was 100% an effort. Where we are today is 100% an effort of both of us,
yeah,
recognizing that we may not know where to go from here. little kids about to bust in. We
Hey,
may not
hey,
know
in
where
real
we're
life,
gonna go.
right?
We've had it happen before. Don't
Hey,
worry.
I'm gonna go ahead and ask you because I heard that little one. That little
I'm
one's
like,
like, "Look, mama." Yeah,
as long as you know it's about to happen.
yeah,
But
yeah,
Yeah.
we may not know where exactly to build this railroad
yeah.
to get us out of here,
Yeah.
but we're going to hold our hands, each other's hands, and we'll walk and find a way out. But we'll do it together. And so I think part of it is you have to, with any relationship, you have to have two willing partners. I mean, they say it in marriage, like your marriage is only as strong as the person who wants it least. So your relationship is only as strong as the people, the person in this case who want it least. It doesn't matter how much I desire a relationship with my dad. If my dad doesn't want it that much, then that's how strong our relationship is, and vice versa. So my dad, I believe wholeheartedly, he wanted and maybe just didn't know how, maybe because of time restraints, resources restraints, he just didn't know how am I going to build it in my life to really mend this with my daughter because I love her. But he had to take some time and do some work on his end and make provisions, and I had to do the same. I cannot move towards a space of wholeness if I myself am harboring incredible, insurmountable resentment towards him. If I'm not even creating a garden, if you will, that gives me the opportunity for him to plant seeds that will grow, you know? So a lot of it a lot of it is centered around just two people being willing to come together even without all the pieces and try to figure it out.
It's made an appearance. So
I love it. They're gonna have their cameos. They will 100% have their cameos, but even to this day, like she is an incredible reminder to me of I want to be better. I want to do better. I wanna be m more outspoken. As she said, I mean, she would come in and just kinda lay the law down, and I admire that it's uncapped, her ability to just come in and say what she wants, because as a child in the space, with things in so many ways just happening to you and you not having control over it, it created an incredible amount of anxiety, just feeling like there was a lack of control, that you were just subjected to the various things that are happening. And I feel like I, in so many ways, was just robbed of being like her, a kid who just wants to go check on, or a
Mhm.
kid who just wants to watch her show. I, at a young age, had to be someone who just had to consider adult problems, adult dynamics, relationships with new siblings, with people who I never saw before, who I'm now seeing, who is a friend of my dad or a friend of my mom or now a spouse of so I just feel like the simplicity of everyday life as an adult now, that's what I want for my children. I don't want them to be inundated with the complexities of relationships and dynamics and division. Although it happens, like it's not here, of course, to judge. But I think I had such an incredible childhood that left me with just these rippling effects to this day that I'm like, let me make it as simple as possible for my kids. Let me, as tough as marriage life can get. And dad, because I've come to you. That's another thing is he's just been available on a whim for me to come and bare my soul, my heart about even marriage stuff. And he's never judged. He's always been like, the floor is yours, exactly how we are in this space. And it's helped me to just get my thoughts together so I can at least return back
Yeah.
with a little bit more clarity than when I entered that conversation with.
Everything dressed.
Um, you know, so
Yeah.
so to your point, like I think I would just encourage women, one, you have to really ask yourself, what do you want more? Do you want to continue to hold on to the thing that you're justifiably right and feeling hurt by, and at the cost of you potentially, because there's no guarantee that you could potentially lose out on this chance to build or determine where this relationship can go? Or do you want to just remain with that understandable hurt, pain, resentment, frustration, disappointment, because the risk of opening yourself up is just too great, which I also get. I think I could have easily been on either side. But in that diner, I decided I'm going to try again. I don't know I don't have any expectations, but I'm going to try again. And that's what I did. And so it really wouldn't have worked out if my dad also hadn't been doing similar work on his end to enter that conversation, willing to, be who he was and listen and validate in the way that he did.
Thank goodness. I mean, really, we definitely will have to have a part 2 and maybe even a part 3 because we got to talk about blended families from a child
Yeah.
perspective. You alluded to it a little bit there, and then repair, reparenting yourself. You know, now that you're a parent, I would imagine there's some reparenting going on so that you parent differently than we did. So we can see that the mommy plate is filling up quickly. I
Yes.
want to just thank you so much for your time, and
Of
thank you,
course.
girls,
Yeah.
for allowing us to have you for 50 minutes.
Yes. Of
But we
course.
certainly have you back on deck. You're a beautiful soul. I know the stuff that you spoke is going
Yeah.
to end with women and men.
Yes.
Mhm.
And you dads out there, understand there's a kid involved. Uh, tread lightly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why? So,
That's so true.
all right.
Well, again, thank you. I feel like it's that meme or that viral video of the dad who was trying to like have a serious conversation and the kids were in the background. They had to like pull the child out. But because I hear Woody like trying to corral her, mind you, she's still doing her thing in the background.
Right.
But no, in all seriousness, thank you both so much just for the chance to share. I could speak so I could speak often about just how life has changed because of what I've gone through, and honestly, the lessons I've learned that I'm grateful that I understand now and didn't at the time. So I'm happy to come back at any point to connect with you,
Okay.
and you just let me know, and we can pick up right where we left off.
Yeah.
We love it. Thanks again,
Yes.
and we'll definitely have you back on again.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you so much for your time. Truly appreciate your openness and your candor. But until next time, I'm John,
I'm Kelly.
and that was Miss Olivia Stewart.
Peace.
Take
Peace.
care.